I work hard every day, do the best I can. I have a great team around me and they keep me super grounded.
I work hard every single day and try to give everything I have, and I am lucky to have a great team around me because they always keep me grounded. On August 25th, 2026, a young woman walks through the player entrance at Flushing Meadows with a racket bag that looks almost too large for her frame. Beside her name, on the scoreboard is a ranking number that most fans would have to look closely to notice, world number 144. She is here through a wildcard-related route. She is here to compete in qualifying. And she is here because somewhere along the way, someone decided that a 20-year-old from Quezon City deserved a chance to be seen. Now move forward to August 25th, 2026, and walk through that same entrance again. Same building, same woman, but almost everything else has changed. Eala arrives with her doubles partner beside her, a camera crew nearby, and a schedule sheet in her hand showing 3 separate US Open events across the next 5 days. The WTA has not publicly commented on the sheer pace of what she is about to attempt, but around Flushing Meadows this week, people are quietly talking about the idea of 3 events in 5 days with genuine surprise. Not because it cannot be done, but because it is Eala, and because of the records she is already bringing into that schedule. So what changed? In 2025, the United States Tennis Associations reshaped the mixed doubles competition into a compressed 2-day, short-set showcase, built specifically to attract elite singles players into a format they would normally pass on. That new structure is exactly why Eala can have 3 events on her schedule in the first place. She is not taking some wild or careless gamble. She is following a calendar the tournament itself was designed to make possible. Add that to a Grand Slam main draw place she earned through her ranking for the first time in her career. Then add a stadium exhibition against Eva Jovic beat the Arthi Eshlaic, and suddenly you have a 5-day stretch containing 3 completely different events on one player's schedule. It is unusual, but it is not impossible, and for Eala, it is clearly intentional. But underneath all the excitement, there is a real tension here, and it deserves to be discussed honestly. On one side is the celebration. Filipino tennis has never seen a moment quite like this, with a player at this ranking carrying this kind of schedule inside this building during the Open era. On the other side is a serious physical question, one that Yahoo Sports raised directly in a headline last month by suggesting that the added exhibition workload could be bad news for her US Open campaign. The argument is straightforward. She is 21 years old. She recently went 3 sets against Amanda Anisimova in Cincinnati and faded physically during the deciding set. Now she is scheduled for a mixed doubles first round, then a stadium exhibition, followed by a Grand Slam singles first round, potentially all inside roughly 120 hours. That is not fear-mongering. That is simply the schedule on paper. And the USTA's own preview article described the pairing with Felix Auger-Aliassime as electric, which is marketing language rather than medical language. Both interpretations can be true at the same time, and being willing to recognize both is what separates a serious analysis from simple fan celebration. Eala herself said something in Cincinnati that suggests she already understands that balance. Speaking to reporters, she said, "Momentum is a thing, I guess, but it's not concrete, and it doesn't give you any 100% answers." That is not the statement of someone who believes a packed 5-day schedule automatically leads to a fairy tale ending. It sounds much more like someone who has already considered the numbers. So let's consider them with her. Start with the climb, because the climb is what turns this entire situation into a story. 12 months ago, Eala was ranked 144th in the world. Today, according to the latest PIF WTA rankings, she is sitting at world number 18. That is a jump of 126 places in one calendar year, and it may be the most important number in this entire story. At world number 144, you do not receive an invitation to play mixed doubles with a global star. You do not receive a stadium exhibition slot, and you certainly do not walk directly into a Grand Slam main draw as a seeded player. At 144, you play qualifying. You wait. You hope for an opening. These 3 events across 5 days only exist because her ranking made them possible. Everything that follows from this schedule traces back to that climb. That is the frame we need to keep in mind. And inside that climb, there is one week that matters more than almost any other. Washington, D.C., late July 2026, the Mubadala D.C. Open Final. Eala walks onto the court against the top seed Jessica Pegula. Pegula takes the opening set 6-4. Eala responds by taking the second 6-4 and then wins the deciding set 6-0. A 6-0 third set in a WTA 500 final against a top 5 opponent. That became Eala's first WTA title of her career, and it was the victory that moved her from the middle of the top 20s toward the top 20, before eventually taking her to a career-high ranking of world number 20 on August 4th, 2026. She became the first Filipino to reach the WTA top 20 in the Open era. That is not just a framing choice from this script. It is reflected in the WTA's own rankings coverage. And that match is also what placed a seed number beside her name heading into New York, which brings us to the three-event situation itself, because this is where the story earns its headline. Event 1 was the mixed doubles first round on Tuesday, August 25th. Eala teamed up with world number 4 Felix Auger-Aliassime, and the partnership itself said something. Auger-Aliassime chose her, not the other way around. Their opening round opponents were the tournament's fairy tale husband and wife pairing, Alina Svitolina and Gail Monfils, in a 16-team field that also included Aryna Sabalenka with Novak Djokovic and defending finalists Iga Swiatek and Casper Ruud. This was never going to be an easy first round and did not become a fairy tale. Svitolina and Monfils won 4-1, 4-1 under the short set format, finishing the match in less than an hour. One event was already complete, and this is where the celebratory version of the story has to face an uncomfortable fact. A 4-1, 4-1 defeat is still a defeat. It happened. Eala's mixed doubles campaign ended before the Grand Slam singles draw had even been revealed. This story does not need to twist that result into something it was not, because the mixed doubles event was never really supposed to be the main achievement. It was a proving ground, and sometimes a proving ground tells you something you did not want to hear. Take a moment here, because the speed of this entire fortnight is genuinely hard to process. It is also worth noticing that Eala has not publicly reacted to the mixed doubles loss at the time of this narration. There has been no dramatic statement, no social media breakdown, and no emotional press conference. Just silence. And that silence could mean several things. It could mean she is handling the result with impressive composure, or it could mean she is privately frustrated and keeping that emotion for the singles court. We simply do not know. What we do know is that event 2 comes Thursday evening at Arthur Ashe Stadium, where she is scheduled to face Iva Jovic in the Stars of the Open exhibition. This is where the behind-the-scenes angle becomes especially interesting, because Jovic is not some random opponent brought in to fill a slot. Jovic defeated Eala at Roland Garros earlier this year, winning 6-4, 6-2. Then she beat Eala again at Queens in the round of 16, 6-2, 6-2. Their head-to-head this year is heavily in Jovic's favor, and now the exhibition format gives Eala a chance to change that story beneath the biggest lights in tennis without a ranking point being at stake. The USTA scheduled this matchup. Someone decided in a planning and marketing meeting that tennis fans should get to see Alex Eala face Eva Jovic under the Arthur Ashe lights. Whether you believe that is reasonable given her singles workload or not, and reasonable people can disagree, it is still sitting on her schedule and therefore counts as event number 2. Then comes event 3, the one this entire title is really pointing toward, the women's singles main draw. The draw sheet is scheduled to be revealed on August 27th, and Eala is widely expected to receive a seed. Several Philippine media reports have placed her around the number 17 seed line. If that projection remains accurate when the draw is released, Alex Eala will become, in the Open era, the first Filipino ever seeded at a Grand Slam. Not the first Filipino to play a Grand Slam, and not the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam match. She already accomplished that here in 2025 when she defeated world number 14 Clara Tauson 6-3, 2-6, 7-6, 11-13. That match lasted well over an hour and 40 minutes and secured her place in the history books. But becoming a seed is a different kind of first. It is the point where a player no longer needs a wild card, does not need to survive qualifying, and does not need a special story simply to justify being in the draw. The number beside the name becomes its own confirmation. That is the record this title is really talking about, and it becomes official the moment the draw sheet is printed. But there are 2 more pieces of evidence that any honest analysis has to include. First is the Cincinnati match against Anisimova in the middle of August, less than 2 weeks ago. Eala took the opening set 6-4, then lost the second 4-6 before dropping the deciding set 2-6. That third set is the shadow hanging over this US Open schedule because it is the most recent documented example of Eala holding her level against a top-5 opponent for 2 sets before physically slipping in the third. Nobody in Filipino sports coverage enjoys focusing on that third set because the first set victory made the better headline. But the third set is precisely why the workload concern cannot simply be dismissed as paranoia. It is why the exhibition schedule matters. Then there is the final piece of evidence, the number that keeps hanging over everything. 1 year ago, at this same tournament and through this same entrance, Eala was ranked 144th in the world. That is the number this story began with, and it is the number every part of the journey quietly returns to. Whatever happens in the singles draw over the next 2 weeks, the platform she has built above 144 in just 12 months is something no single headline can fully capture because it is not one isolated moment. It is a curve, and when it comes to judging where Eala stands right now, perhaps the most useful voice is not a coach, a broadcaster, or even a WTA official. It is the player who just beat her in Cincinnati. Amanda Anisimova, currently inside the WTA top 5 and a 2025 Wimbledon finalist, said after their 3-set match that Eala was a fighter and praised the level she brought to the contest, language that Philippine outlets, including GMA, later quoted directly. When someone competing at Anisimova's level calls a 21-year-old opponent a fighter after beating her, that carries a very specific meaning in tennis. It means you had to work for the victory. It means the opponent refused to disappear when the pressure increased. And it means that the next times they meet, the result might not be the same. But here is the part of the title that requires the most honesty. The WTA has not released a public statement expressing concern about Eala's compressed schedule. There is no official institutional reaction, and no press release announcing shock. What exists instead is the combined weight of the numbers Eala is carrying into Flushing Meadows this week. A top 20 ranking, a first career WTA title, a projected first-ever Filipino Grand Slam seed, and a 5-day schedule containing 3 separate events. That collection of facts is what the phrase WTA in shock is really pointing toward. It is not about some boardroom suddenly panicking. It is about recognition of how far this player has traveled. Now zoom out, because the importance of this moment extends far beyond one player's schedule. Across the open era of tennis, which has now lasted close to 6 decades, no Filipino man or woman has ever been seated at a Grand Slam. That is not some tiny statistical footnote. It represents a major gap in a sport that has a global reach across every continent. When Eala's name appears on the draw sheet with a seed number beside it on August 27th, that gap will finally close. Regionally, she now belongs inside a highly competitive Asian group that includes Jung Chinwen, the recent Olympic gold medalist, along with a rebuilding Naomi Osaka and Emma Navarro's continued presence inside the top 10. At number 18, Eala is not some distant outsider in that group. She is a peer. There is also a financial side to this story. Philippine media has reported a figure of around 8.7 million pesos as the guaranteed first-round payout for a US Open main draw singles player, which, if accurate, would sit on top of her DC Open Champions prize money and the guaranteed mixed doubles earnings. Taken together, that would make this fortnight the most financially significant period in the history of Filipino tennis. Those figures should be treated carefully because they come from Philippine media reports rather than an official US Open published breakdown. But the overall direction is clear. Culturally, watch parties are reportedly being arranged across Metro Manila for 10 p.m. local start times. Filipino communities living across 3 continents are adjusting their evenings around draws that have not even been revealed yet. The Philippine Sports Commission has publicly congratulated Eala on reaching the top 20. None of those things change her ranking. None of them appear directly in her prize money. But every one of them can be felt in the way the phrase Alex Eala is playing tonight moves through group chats and conversations across multiple time zones at once. Now comes the vulnerability, because any script that refuses to mention it would not be telling the whole truth. Just 24 hours before this narration, Alex played her first US Open event of 2026 and lost 4-1, 4-1 in the short set mixed doubles format against Svitolina and Monfils. It was quick. It was public. It happened on the opening day of the tournament, and it will remain in the record as the first competitive data point of her fortnight. As of this moment, she has not publicly addressed the result. There has been no reaction quote, no Instagram post, and no press availability explaining how she feels. The silence itself has become part of the story. And if we read that silence fairly, it sounds less like a player whose entire fortnight has gone wrong, and more like someone who understands that mixed doubles was never the event that would define this trip to New York. The singles is the singles. That is why she came here. That is where the seed number matters. That is where the record this title is built around actually lives. Which brings us back to the entrance she walked through twice 1 year apart. Same building, same doors, a completely different number beside her name. 144 in 2025, 18 in 2026. Whatever the singles draw produces over the next 2 weeks, whether it is a first-round exit, a fourth-round breakthrough, or a run into the second week, unlike anything Filipino tennis has witnessed before, the fact that she earned a seed will remain. The paperwork has already confirmed the direction of the journey, and the draw sheet on August 27th will put that achievement in print. Momentum is a thing, she said in Cincinnati, but it's not concrete and it doesn't give you any 100% answers. She was right. It does not. What is concrete is the room she is standing in now. A room where her name appears among the seeded players alongside Sabalenka and Swiatek and Goff, rather than sitting below them on a qualifying list. A room where Auger Aliassime chose her as a partner. A room where Sanisimova called her a fighter after beating her. A room where the USTA scheduled her against Eva Jovic beneath the Arthur Ashe lights because they knew people would be watching. She is not yet the biggest story in that room. She is not the champion of that room. She may not dominate this fortnight or any fortnight anytime soon, but she is in the room. And rooms like this do not simply close behind the people who earn their way inside. If you are following this fortnight with the rest of us, stay with the channel through the singles draw, because the number beside her name is about to become official in a way that matters. And the version of this story written after August 27th will be printed on a page that exactly 1 year ago did not exist.